Greetings, guys. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette, and this is my channel, Evolve with Monette. For those of you that are new here today, I am a professional intuitive empath. We're going to get right into it. I was inspired recently because I saw something that happened in the zeitgeist with Mike Tyson. He is everywhere, and he's such an interesting character in so many ways. I know about his horrible, but I also see his evolution, and I believe in our ability to be complex as humans. And if there has ever been a case study in complexity, it is Mike Tyson. From the brawn to his voice to the allegations, accusations, and convictions to the ear biting to being an incredible beast of a man who's this well oiled machine to being this evolved thinker and almost philosopher. Never would I have imagined I would say all those things about one person, but yet here I am. Recently, he was at a comedy show on a rooftop bar, not a lot of people there, and a guy was very struck by his presence because he grew up in the same neighborhoods as him and he's about the same age as him. He pulled the gun out at the show. He wanted to talk to Mike. He challenged Mike to a fight. Mike obviously didn't take the bait, but he did diffuse the situation better than the bouncers, better than the security, better than the people in the crowd. In fact, when the gun was pulled out, Mike Tyson didn't even flinch. And I watched that and I thought the power and the zen that this man has. Mike probably assessed the situation in a multiple of different ways, a myriad of different ways, like anybody that's using their intuition will. Mike is renowned for being very involved in the cannabis business, as well as taking a probably metric ton of shrooms that none of us could consume and still stand. So I imagine he has a deeper understanding as these drugs, specifically mushrooms, ayahuasca, acid, and other hallucinogenics, cause you to really do deep dives into your shadow. The eighth house is ruled by the shadow. It's ruled by the occult. It's associated with that, which means that it's things that are hidden, like dark psychology, crime, bad karma, dirty tricks, revenge, jealousy, and control. And it's the house of the shadow's power and the transformation of that deep complexity at the bedrock of your character. I talk a lot about the eighth house because I'm very aware of where my eighth house placement is, and it's in Scorpio, which is the darkest place it can be. It's very well aspected there, it's very well supported there, though. And I watched that and I thought the reason I thought a lot of things, and I'm no sports commentator or commentator regarding Mike Tyson, although I am doing it now. Interestingly enough, it's because it spiritually hit my soul. As a reader, I know what it is to assess people in a situation. As an empath, many of us listening assess toxic, narcissistic people in order to survive. So we knew how to survive when things were not right. We all are intuitive, every single one of us. When you are exploring drugs like ayahuasca and mushrooms and acid, you do dive into another level. I have done mushrooms and I have done acid. Ayahuasca is next. But what I will tell you is that I know truly the way that you evolve when you are dealing with some of these hallucinogenics, if you're using them quote unquote responsibly. What does that even mean? I watched Mike not flinch, and I don't think it's because he was on mushrooms or high. He could have been. I don't know. It's because I think he read the guy. I think I was watching him do a reading. I watched him never take his eyes off the guy. We're seeing the back of his head from several different perspectives and several different videos, and we see him never take his eye off the guy. And in fact, after the guy pulls the gun is when Mike Tyson invites him over for a hug. When the guy had come up to him initially, Mike had refused to fight him. The guy said, I just need you to fight me to make myself legitimate. Essentially, that's what he was saying to him. And Mike knew that that was not a fight he wanted because Mike knows that he's a lethal weapon. Even at this age, don't sleep on Mike Tyson. But what he did do is after the guy kind of showed his hand or pulled the gun, Mike called him over like a king, like a don. I love mafia movies. It was very Godfather-esque, if ever I've seen it play out in real life. The guy goes over, Mike stands up, gives him a bear hug. The guy really truly hugs Mike, like pats him several times, so many times If I was a girl getting that hug, I'd been like, whoa, back up, broski. It's a lot. You're doing the most. Hey, Kesala. I would have been like, you're doing the absolute most. But Mike really allows him to embrace him, not fearing for his life because I think he read him, probably whispers something in his ear. And whatever happened in that brief, momentary exchange, the man shouts out Mike. He says New York, and then he says appropriately, he corrects himself out of reverence and respect. He says Brownsville, specifically pointing to the borough that Mike Tyson is from. And then Mike reaches out again to shake his hand. Epic king, okay? Reaches out again to shake his hand. This big hand. Can you imagine the hand? As a woman, I'm thinking of my hand, and I have big hands for a woman, but my hand slipping into Mike Tyson's claw, his paw, his freaking paw. So Mike Tyson extends his paw, reaches out, shakes the guy's hand, and the guy is humbled in the moment. He bows his head to Mike's hand like a mafia movie in a complete show of vulnerability, because at that time, anybody could have tackled him. Anybody could have touched him. Anybody could have got him. Anybody could have shot him. His eyes are off of the crowd. He's fully engulfed in the moment. And he is knowing that his greatest thing that he wanted, which was attention from Mike, and Mike knew what he wanted. But Mike gave it to him when he knew he needed to be the bigger person and diffuse the situation. He bows his head and he kisses the ring. Literally, he kisses Mike's hand. And then he says, Shalom, which means peace be with you in Arabic. Wow. The guy standing there watching it is watching. Because when a Don says, nobody move, nobody moves. See, Mike is the Don in the situation. He is the godfather. He was the king and is the king. But in that moment, he was acting out of a monarchy, if I've ever seen it. He was a king to Mike, meaning that guy felt like Mike was a king. And when Mike said no, because the guy said, I'm not going to come over. They're going to call the cops. I got to get out of here, because he knew he was wild. He knew he was out of line. And Mike said, no, come here. If you're not into mafia movies, I don't know what to tell you. Please, if you don't have to be, you see it, you've seen every mafia movie. That 1 minute and 20 something second clip is a mafia movie personified. It was powerful. But I'm dwelling on the moment, but I want to teach you the bigger lesson of it. The guy walks away and nobody moves because the guy standing there is watching it. And I could see he's like, I can't believe I'm witnessing this. But he could have easily touched him. There were so many people that could have done something in that moment. It didn't happen because Mike didn't want it to happen. And he knew he was safe. I don't know how he knew, because I would have freaked out. I'm a reader for a living, professionally. Got clients in a few minutes. I would have been beside myself. But Mike read the situation appropriately, differently, because he's faced death. Death is ruled by the 8th house. Death is associated with Scorpio. Mike has faced death. He has caused near deaths. He has taken away people's souls and spirits in so many different ways that he's had to face the grave and himself. And in this moment, he did it. And he didn't even flinch. That's what happens when you face your triggers purposely, repeatedly, when you immerse yourself in your triggers. As the guy departs, he gets into a bit of a scuffle with the security guard, who's all big and bad now that Mike's diffused the situation when he only was escalating it. Not to say that he didn't have to do a job. He did. But it is to say that the guy read his energy. It was fascinating to watch. The guy with the gun, and calls him a bitch. Calls him a punk-ass bitch or something of that nature. He said, I could have just blown your head off, dude. Shut up. Because the truth was, all the power in the room had gravitated to Mike. The security guard's ego was bruised, truly. He wanted to kind of like bluster up. It's egos. It was guys. I got it. I saw it. We all saw it. Go watch it. You'll see what I mean. But the reason that he did not do anything unnecessary, thank God, is because he was there to bow his head to the king. And the king doesn't become a king. And my empaths listening, my divine feminines, we do not become empresses without facing death, without facing our fears, without facing it for years and years, without being bathed in our trauma, without being born in fires, without coming out with sharpened spears. Mike didn't flinch because he's seen that look in that guy's eyes. He knew he was vulnerable, probably knew that when he goes home he'll cry. He read him. A psychic, if ever I've seen it. He read him properly, handled him appropriately, and saved many. When you are immersed in your trauma, when you are comfortable with your triggers, you take your power back. Mike owned the power in the room because he has not been in any situation probably that he hasn't been fully consumed in, lost himself in, had to go to jail for. You understand? Mike has seen it all and more. Apparently, God still has more for him to see because that guy left and let him breathe. Or did Mike let that guy breathe? That's powerful. That's scorpionic energy. Done right, it will bring you, just like we saw that guy, to your knees, but peacefully. The placement in my chart means that relationships were the thing that I feared the most to lose. And now in my life with relationships, I pick carefully before I choose. Because even if they have to go, the eighth house, the scorpionic lessons, the tricky placement that I have come so well to know means that I may very well lose them. And they may leave as foe instead of friend. It doesn't mean I embrace that, right? And it doesn't mean I create it, but it does mean I no longer fear it. That's the power of staring the gun in the face, staring the rejection in the face, staring the repudiation, staring the unrequited love, unrequited friendship, unrequited respect in the face repeatedly. It can never get the best of me again. It's had me, truly, almost taken me to my end for years and years with various people that I always thought were the dearest of friends. It's happened over and over and over, and all often in the same way. That's where my scorpionic energy in the eighth house liked to play, because it was getting me to embrace my greatest strength, which is what eighth house placements will do. It will get you to lean in, hey Rain, and truly understand you. In order for me to succeed in the capacity that I have begun to, my angels and ancestors knew that releasing friends is something that I must do, because when you ascend in any capacity, in any direction, no matter what you're calling, you will have to release them. I know this because it's indicated with a scorpionic lesson in the Bible between Abraham and Isaac as they ascended the mountain. It's not about them at the top. I've talked about that a lot. It's about the ascension. God speaks to Abraham halfway up and he says, leave the donkeys and the asses behind. You can find this in the word. It is not hard to find. And that means, he says, they can't go where you're going. It's too steep. Now, mountain goats, we know, Capricorn energy, can ascend any mountain, steep, rugged, or terrain. But those donkeys and the porters and the Sherpas that he had with him could not climb that mountain with him. And God said, leave them here. You have work to do. And from here on out, it's going to be just me, you, and the destiny, which would be represented as his son, Isaac. You can't take everybody with you. And the eighth house gets you to face that. You cannot have everyone stay in your path or in your face, especially if they are dealing great disrespect. Eighth house lessons cause you to face your deepest fears. Everybody's chart's different. The Scorpio energy rules it, but it may not be always your placement. I highly suggest you go research that and find out where it will show up for you. But facing our fears, losing things, and death come true. There's a Masonic saying, death smiles at everybody, but when it smiles at the Mason smiles back. You don't have to be a Mason to embrace that. Be attached to nothing. That was my lesson with my eighth house placement. To not embrace or relish, depend, or be codependent on friendship. Oh, when I have someone I love, my God, I will love them and I will be loyal to them to the very end. But I understand that ends inevitably come, and not just sometimes, always. Enjoy every single second with the people that God allows to be in your face. Friend, lover, husband, person, affairee, y'all, I see you. No judgment. Whatever you do, suck the marrow out. But understand that relationships are here to teach us about transformation, and death is the greatest of those. I watched Mike Tyson in his street clothes ascend the mountain by himself, embrace a man who could have changed his life in an instant, ended his good health, and he did it by being magnanimous and wise, by looking the man and the inner child in that man in the eyes and saying, if today is the day I meet my maker, then I am ready to rise. It was powerful. And they said before I jumped on with clients that I needed to get this message to you. There will be a time in your life when you're challenged to do the very same. When your triggers were put there purposely to whisper your name in the night, to cause you great fright, but it was to challenge you to realize you were not fully living your life. If you're scared of losing something or someone, then there is more work to be done. And I don't want to trigger you by saying that, but I learned that losing and facing death in so many ways, it started out for me in friendship, and then it was my health that was put in my face. 24 hours to meet my maker, 24 hours to escape the body that has always confounded me. And God says, do you want to fight, or are you ready to end your journey? It was powerful. But let me tell you what it learned me. Be attached to nothing. Be grateful for everything, for everyone, for every moment. Because when death does come in any way, metaphorically, figuratively, or actually, it is not us who gets to own it. It owns us. Nothing is promised. Not to be morbid on this morning, but this is very eighth house energy. When I tell you that I worked through all that scorpionic placement and really let it work through me, I meant it. One of the best things in my life happened, and it came on the backside of death. When the Grim Reaper comes, it's usually because there's nothing left. So pay attention to what you think you can never go without, because there may be some emotional things there to work out. Mike Tyson was calm. He was ice in a storm, because looking into the face of death is something he has known. The Bhagavad Gita comes to mind. He became immortalized energetically. One day he will face his maker. And he said, and if it's so, then I am truly free. I've heard him talk about it on podcasts, his and others. He knows that he's had everything, had his full druthers, millions and millions and women, and clout and drugs and fights and houses for life. And now he's a humble man who calls pigeons off his roof and hugs his kids and wife. Full circle. That's the transition. That's a scorpionic transition of death, transformation, and rebirth. Understand your eighth house. Understand that scorpionic thing. Understand those issues that trigger you, those family members that trigger you, those friends that trigger you, those situations that cause you to cry, those things that make you wish that you could die when you're calling on a thing you're not ready for yet. Death will come. But until then, enjoy your life and have fun. And you do that by leaning into the thing that causes you the greatest pain. I'm not saying it because I think it's a good idea. I'm saying it because facing it almost drove me insane. And now no one can get to me like that again, ever. I had to go through it to know it fully. But what do? You know, I promised you. When I learn, I will teach. It's the thing I'm called to do. So good sharing some energy with you. Some comments here. Casella says, I've been trying to study the eighth house because my North Node is in Pisces. Is in there. So all of this makes sense. Mona, I know you are busy, but if possible one day, can you go into more detail about Empress Emperor going through death to become an Empress? Yes, absolutely. I guess the stages evolve in such a way. I would be happy to do a video about that, Casella. Nyasia M says, Monette, blessings. Blessings, chat. Always enjoy your lives, my dear. Oh, thank you so much, Nija. Thank you. I love you guys, man. At 2:22:02, I love you. My kindred spirit friends. I'm so grateful for you. I love when you guys are kind to each other, too. Come back and join me, guys, and next time we'll evolve the way we do together.